place, I want to thank me. I want to thank me for believing in me. I want to thank me for doing all this hard work. I want to thank me for having no days off.
Okay, guys, y'all already know who it is. Y'all already know what it is. It's time for another episode of Up Close with Keisha. So let's get into it. Up Close with Keisha. Okay, so this week I wanted to talk about being an empty nester. It's a conversation that comes up from time to time. And honestly, like, I kind of stray away from it because for some reason, like, whenever you start talking about uncomfortable conversations, being an empty nester, being divorced, having lost your parents, people act like you got leprosy or COVID or something, and it's like, oh, stay away. So I don't know what that's about, but nonetheless, today I'm going to talk about it. So for some of you, well, I'm sure there's a lot of you that don't really know me personally. So I am a mother of two beautiful young adults. My son will be, oh my God, my son will be 24 this year. Oh my gosh. My daughter will be 23. This is crazy work. But I'm so thankful. They are literally thriving and living their best lives. And anyway, I'm gonna try to not put so much of the focus of this video on them, but more so about me and my experiences and just how they're different from most of the people that are in my inner circle. So I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. Hold on, I need to figure out where my remote is. Okay, I had the TV on in the background and I was totally getting distracted. I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna work. So turn that off and I'm back now. So I had both of my kids in my early 20s, right? It was kind of like a back-to-back thing. Neither one were planned. That's a whole conversation for another day. Very early on, when they were very young, like 1 and 2, I was still at home with my parents, and I grew up in like the old church, okay? My parents, my adopted parents, were old enough to be my grandparents. So there are a lot of like dated mentalities and everything that came along with being pregnant out of wedlock and bringing shame on the family name and shame to the church and all of these things. And I remember very vividly one Sunday morning, my daddy, who was a deacon, and not to be confused with my biological father, who I talked about in like 2 videos ago, right? But my father that raised me. I remember him getting up in front of the church and like went on this whole rant about how he wanted prayer because he wanted me out of the house, and he wished I would go away, and how do you get rid of somebody that doesn't want to go away? And I'm sitting here like paralyzed in shock, like I cannot believe, I kind of could believe that he got up there and did something like this. But either way, it was just so out of left field. Like, why is he saying this? Like, I have like 2 small kids. I'm like, these people are probably looking at me like crazy. Like, what is she doing for him to say this? Absolutely nothing. Just to be honest, my daddy was just a mean old man sometimes. Conversation for another day. So either way, I knew then, like, okay, this whole single parent thing is gonna be a lot harder than I thought, because I thought that I would have the support of my parents. Their dad was not really in the picture like that. I mean, he was around, but he was not really in the picture like that. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna have to figure this thing out. Now, because of my childhood and my mom giving me and my youngest brother up, or putting us in foster care when I was 3 years old, like I always had like a mentality that like, hey, me and my kids will make it no matter what, right? Like giving up is not an option, figuring things out. So I had a lot of trials and tribulations as it relates to being a single parent and raising them, and just raising them to be good people. You know what I'm saying? So I went through so many different things. I was married for a few years, but that was just a situation that was very tumultuous, and I did not want to raise my kids like that. So I separated, got divorced, and then like I was like completely back on my own, doing all the things, school, after school functions, football, dance, cheer, wrestling, ROTC. I mean, whatever they had going on, it was like all the responsibility fell on me, right? And so much of my life was focused on making sure that they were okay and making sure that they were able to be successful, and that they wouldn't have some of the hardships that I had in raising them. Whew, why do I feel... Y'all ain't gonna talk about me, honey. You will not talk about me. I'm not gonna be one of those people that's crying on the internet. But anyways, okay, let me just take a minute here. Either way, I just wanted to make sure that I truly set them up for success, right? So once they got to high school, now they got friends and they're doing this and they're doing that. And like a couple times my son went away for like football camps, leadership camps for ROTC. My daughter was on the dance team. They travel for like world and different things like that. And so whenever they weren't around, I found myself like, well, dang, well, what am I going to do? Like, well, what am I going to do? I dated here and there after I got divorced, but it was like nothing concrete. Nobody that ever like met them and we were like totally like meshed and tangled in each other's lives, whatever. So I was still left to my own devices a lot of times, right? And so with that being said, like once my son went to the army and then once my daughter went off to college, I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of weird, because it was just me. Now, at the time, my mom was still living, but her health started to kind of fail. So I was like a really support system for her, even though like that's a whole nother situation with the chaos that was my mom. But either way, so she ended up passing in May of 2021. And so now here it is, like, okay, now I'm truly like by myself, right? And so learning how to kind of navigate through all of that, like, dang, okay, my parents are gone, my biological and adoptive parents are gone, my kids are out doing their thing, like, relationship here and there, situationship here and there, but a lot of my time is spent to myself. And I find myself sometimes feeling kind of isolated with like my friend groups, because everyone has at least one child or two that's still school age, elementary, middle school, high school, right? I have friends that are still married or in fruitful relationships where like everything's kind of like, everyone's kind of tethered together. So there are times where I just feel like kind of by myself, you know what I'm saying? And so lately I've been just doing like a lot of reflection and like soul searching and just saying like, hey, like I really need to take this time for the first time truly in my life to focus on me and like really go down that list of goals and things that I've wanted to accomplish for so long. So here's the thing that becomes challenging, right? So I'm in this completely separate chapter of my life. All of my friends are either in relationships, or they're still married, or they have these beautiful co-parenting situations, but either way they still have children who are school age and they're still doing all the things. And so sometimes I may call or reach out and it's like am I bothering you? Like, I'm sorry. And it's like the tone kind of come across like, don't you know it's a school night? Like, don't you know it's this? And it's like, and I sit back and think about like, dang, well, when my kids was in school and we were doing all the things, I was still available to everybody. Get into it. But nonetheless, I tried to scale back without reaching out to people during the week, because I get it, like just the hustle and bustle, hustle and bustle, hustle and bustle. But then that's where that whole empty nester thing comes along, where like that loneliness kind of sets in, especially having lost my parents. I lost two sets of parents, my adoptive parents and my biological parents. So still navigating through those major losses in my life with a couple other family members that I lost recently. And so just sometimes you just feel like kind of lonely. And people are like, oh yeah, now this time you can do all the things you want to do, but it's still challenging, right? Like, I'm a work in progress. So much of my life has been centered around my children. Even my youth growing up, my parents kept foster kids until I was in high school. So there was always a focus on children first, children first. You know, I had to come home from school, help cook dinner, help with the younger kids, and all of those things. And then pretty much not too long after high school, I had my kids of my own. And so that was just always the focus. So learning how to put yourself first and there not being any guilt behind it, or any reservations, is a very hard thing, right? But I'm navigating through it, right? Like, I'm getting back to so many things that I've been wanting to work on and do for myself, but even learning what those things are or bringing them to your remembrance, right? Because they've been shelved for so long because they're like, I'm a mom first. And I think that's probably one of the pieces of advice I would give to anybody like that has kids. You know, they're not going to be babies forever. They're not going to be preteens or teenagers forever. Eventually they're going to graduate high school. They're going to go off and start cultivating these amazing, wonderful lives of their own. And so at that point, you don't want to be trying to pick up the pieces and be like, okay, now what do I do, right? You don't want to like completely lose yourself in that. Yes, you are a parent, but also you as the individual matter. So that would be my advice. I still have a hard time even doing that. My kids are grown now. Like, they call, I'm like their main support system. Their dad is incarcerated for probably the third or fourth or fifth time, honey. I don't know. I stopped keeping track, but so he's been unavailable for a good portion of their life. You know, they do have somewhat of a relationship with him now, but it's still like only so much he can do as far as like tangible support, right? So last year, my son moved to Houston. My daughter graduated undergrad here at UF and then moved to Texas for graduate school because she's going for her PhD. And, you know, supporting them through these really big changes in their lives, it was like literally so overwhelming. And then like now, like I come home and like if I stop right now, complete silence. And that's something I have to get used to. Like, just the silence sometimes is like deafening. And most people are like, oh, you should be happy and you can get off work and you can go home and you can go to sleep, you ain't gotta do nothing or whatever. And that's true, but sometimes there are times it's like, okay, like, but I want somebody here. I'm like, you know, you kind of miss the busyness of the household, right? And then too, like, I've had conversations where it's kind of like, people almost make me feel guilty, like, oh, I wish I could go home and do nothing. I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. Baby, I paid my dues. I paid my dues and then some, honey. Okay? Like, I've sacrificed so much, and it's something like I don't have any regrets or qualms about. If I had to do it all over again the same exact way, I would change nothing. Nothing, do you hear me? But at the same time, like, I feel like even with a lot of things that I went through, at that time, like, I navigated through them on my own. Like, some of my friends, my closest friends, were unavailable or they were caught up living their own life, which they have every right to do, right? But, you know, just to kind of like this undertone, like, I don't get like what they may have going on. Like, even in dating, sorry, that's my dog. Even in dating, sometimes people can have this thing like, okay, well, you don't know what it's like. You have to get off work, you have to go here, have to go there, do this, do that. And like, wait a minute, you're seeing me now that my kids are grown. You don't have a clue. You don't have a clue. I remember, I will never forget, I had lost my job. This is back in like 2005. I had lost my job and it was just a very rough time. And I lost my car the whole night. And so I was catching the bus to do interviews and everything. And I had to go pick the kids up from daycare, and I had missed one bus, and it started raining. I mean, when I tell you, pouring cats and dogs. And if y'all in Florida, y'all know how quickly we can have like a summer storm, like, and it's like a hurricane, right? So it was one of those days. It was a mini hurricane, and it was going on 6 o'clock, and y'all know how them daycares be about 6 o'clock, right? Like, you got to be there or they gonna charge you. They don't care what the weather like. You better be there on time to pick up them kids, okay? And I was running for my life in the pouring rain, and this lady stopped and she was like, hey, your kids go to Wellborn, right? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, hey, will you want to ride? And she was like, well, yeah. She's like, well, where you live, I can, take you the rest of the way and take you home. Oh, that night in the shower, when I tell you I cried, like, thank God, because to have to get on the bus with my kids in the pouring rain, it was just sickening. So there's so many things I went through that I never complain about. A lot of them I never really talk about, but just sometimes people just like see me like, oh, she got together, she ain't like, oh, she just, she living her best life, she ain't got no kids, she got whatever, she's empty nester, she can do what she want to do, she ain't got no problems. Oh, we got homework, we gotta go here, we gotta go there, whatever. And it's like, yeah, thank God I don't look like what I've been through. Told you, I ain't one of the people that's gonna cry on the internet. But y'all might catch me one day, because it's nothing but God's grace that I'm able to just be here with my head high and just sit back and just see that I have two beautiful, amazing kids that are like literally thriving in their life. And then mama's still trying to get to her goals and doing all their things, but that's a part of the process. But anyways, so back to just being an empty nester. It has its ups and downs. But again, I'm navigating through it. But my advice again would be to like, don't lose yourself. Like, yes, you're a parent, but you're also a person, and your dreams and your goals matter. And if you can just figure out what that thing is now and start working on that little bit by little bit, and when you get to this time period, it will be an adjustment, but not as big of an adjustment. And also make sure that you have a circle that is supportive and just can just say like, hey, wait a minute, like I know I have this going on, but also I understand that you may be in a different phase, and hey, I can help you navigate and maneuver through this time in your life as well. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for tonight, because I don't want to be one of the people that's crying on the internet. But at the same time, like, I'm definitely thankful. I'm just so grateful that I was able to overcome so many trials and tribulations, and I'm here to tell about it with a smile. So shout out to all my empty nesters, all the people out there with adult children trying to figure out the singles or partnerships, married couples, whatever. Even with married couples, you have kids that's been your focus, and now you're at home, and now you just left with your spouse. Y'all looking at each other's face every day like, okay, what next, right? I don't know. I haven't gotten to that part yet. I'm not married yet, remarried yet, but I hope that, just Lord's willing, honey. Lord willing. But when it gets to that time, I want to make sure that I'm secure and enough, and I have accomplished all the things that I put off for myself for so long. So to my empty nesters, my empty nesters, my 40 and up people, all of us, like, hey, we in this together. We're gonna figure it out, and main thing, just love on each other, support each other, and encourage each other, and we're gonna come out on top. So that's all I have for tonight. I don't want to tell y'all all the stories, because then what I'm gonna talk about the rest of the time on the channel, right? So that's all I have for now. Again, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Up Close with Keisha. I am on all the socials at Keisha, that's her. So make sure y'all tap in and continue to rock with me. Till next time, peace.